Hi everyone, welcome to this Smart Objectives workshop. My name is Helen Farrow and I hope this session finds you well and that you're keeping safe. This session is a Smart Objectives workshop. It's an interactive and practical session. You'll be working on developing and building targets and objectives and then converting these into smart objectives. During the activity session, which will come later on, please feel free to pause the session so that you can spend as long as you need on the activity. And we do know that if you fully engage with the activity and take part to the fullest sense, then you'll gain the most out of this session. So let's move on. Now, there's a little bit of pre-work to be done just to get us started. So hopefully you will have read the Smart Objectives Guidebook. This is available on the intranet. You can download it or you can read it directly from there. It's very brief, but will really set you up well to making sure you can fully understand and partake in this workshop. Also, please bring along one of your own objectives. It can be a personal one, or ideally it would be a work-related objective that you will have received from your line manager. And what we'll aim to do is to work on that during the session and to create them or merge them into smart objectives. So if you haven't already done so, pause the session here, go and find the Smart Objectives Guidebook and find an objective to work on in this session. So what we'll be covering during the session, it's not a very long session, so don't worry. We're just going to have a very brief introduction. We're going to cover off some really famous quotes about objectives, just to get our minds in the right frame. We are going to be looking at why objectives are important, not just for individuals, but also for organisations and businesses. What are smart objectives? Many of you, I'm sure, will have heard of smart objectives, but for those of you that haven't, or if you might need a refresher, we're just going to cover that off very briefly. And then lastly, or second to last rather, there's going to be an activity where we're going to spend some time working on the objective and making it into a smart objective. And then finally, we've got a really quick quiz, fun quiz. Doesn't matter if you pass or fail. It is literally just to ensure that you've gained some understanding. It's also for us to make improvements to this session, and also for you to give your feedback on how you think it went, as well as suggestions for other webinars or other workshops that you might want to partake in. So without further ado, let's start. So here are some quotes that I found on Ask Google on objectives. And there's just a few here, but I thought these ones were particularly useful for helping set up our thinking and get us in the right mindset for talking about objectives and why they're important in organisations and personally as well. So there's just 5 here. We're going to go clockwise, starting at the top left. So first one here by John C. Maxwell. His quote is that people need clear objectives set before them if they are to achieve anything of value. So from that, I think we can understand that people need to understand what they need to achieve. So what's an end goal? If they are to feel successful and achieve anything of value, I mean, we all know that we could spend our day watching Netflix, or we could spend our day learning something on a course. So what is it of value? And if we set a plan or set a goal, we're more likely to achieve something that's more meaningful. Not that watching Netflix isn't meaningful, because sometimes it is. The next one over, slightly older, from Aristotle. Success is easy to achieve once you set your mind on a specific goal. So this, I think, is telling us that it's really easy to achieve something if we have a really specific goal in mind. So if we know what it is that we want to achieve, it's really easy to achieve that. Now, if you're baking bread, or if you're like me and you're baking bread, that's not always the outcome. Sometimes I get a really flat pancake. Sometimes it just doesn't rise. But if you're not like me and you bake really good bread, you can achieve success if you have an end goal in mind, a specific goal in mind. The next one round here, Don Clifton, he developed quite a well-known survey called Strength Finder. It's a psychometric test that I did way back. But it's really useful. £10. It was £10 then. Get the book, do the test, do the survey, and then the book kind of tells you a bit about the Strength Finder. But it's really useful in identifying your own strengths. Anyway, his quote about objectives is, nothing happens until someone expects something of you in ways you can achieve. Now, this extends our thinking a little bit further in that the suggestion here is that you're sharing your objectives. So if someone knows that you want to achieve a particular goal by a particular time, they potentially may set up to check in on you and make sure you're doing that and to achieve that. If it's your line manager, they are very likely to do that. But if it's, if it's a colleague or a friend, if it's a personal goal, if you're sharing that, the expectation that you set, there's kind of like an agreement between the two of you that you're going to achieve this goal by a particular time. And that's really helpful in furthering our thinking about goals. By sharing it, we're more likely to achieve something specific. The next one, really, really famous, Stephen R. Covey, start with the end in mind. So here, I think what he's saying is that before we even get started, we need to get really serious and detailed about what the end goal looks like. And the reason why will be explained by the next quote here, is that by Yogi Berra, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else. And that signifies to me that we need to really drill down on what the specific goal is, and have an idea about what the outcome is before we start planning and moving towards it. Because it could be that the goal that we think is the right one ends up in a different place entirely, ends up with a different outcome. If we're really serious about the outcome, what goal it is that we want to achieve, that gives us really specific explanation around how we can get there. So that's just some really interesting quotes about objectives that really frame our thinking and help us set up for this session. So, why are objectives important? Every business has a set of objectives. They might be written in a business plan. Some really corporate organizations have 5-10 year plans. When I was studying, I read about a Japanese company that had a lifetime plan. Now, I don't know how an organization does that, but they had a plan that was a long goal in the future. So it could be like that, or it could just be, if it's a small business, could be just in the mind of the business owner or the business leader. And for all other businesses, you'll have something in between. So every business will have a set of objectives, whether it's written down very explicitly or it's held in the mind of the business owner or the business partners. They're important. They indicate where a business wants to go, what it wants to achieve, and more importantly, perhaps, how it's going to go about achieving those goals. And that's really helpful for a lot of stakeholders who are interested in the outcomes and the success of the business. There are ways for people to identify what it is the business wants to achieve. So, for instance, colleagues can understand and align with the business objectives to say, okay, Parenta wants to train thousands of young people and set them up for success in their careers in childcare, looking after the future of our world. And some people go, yeah, that's a really great objective. I really want to align behind that. I want to do everything that I can to ensure that Parenta succeeds in achieving that outcome for not just people working in settings, but also for the community and the young people that they affect by the work that they do. So they're really successful and really helpful for people to identify what it is an organisation wants to achieve. As we saw from some of the quotes, they help set expectations. So it helps us see what success looks like for the business and helps us to align behind the business goals. And in this way, they're a really critical component of creating engaged and motivated workforce. We do know that if our values match those of an organisation's values, and if our goals match those of an organisation's goals, we know that we're more likely to be engaged in the work that we do every day, to ensure that the organisation is a success and that we feel successful as well. Gallup is a really large organisation in the US. They conduct, they're a data-driven company. They conduct thousands and thousands of surveys, but really useful. They contain a lot of good data sets. And they did a survey that found that 1 in 2 people, so 50% of the people they surveyed, clearly knew what was expected of them every day. Now, that's great. You know, half of everybody working in organisations know what it is they need to do when they come in every day, and not just every day, but what they need to achieve to ensure the business is successful. The flip side of that is that the other half aren't really sure what it is that they're meant to be doing and working on every day and how they're meant to be successful. Now, that's really sad and that's really disappointing, and that, you know, perhaps half of everybody that works at Parenta doesn't know how they can be successful, doesn't know the objectives of the business and how they can help the business achieve those. So by conducting this workshop and getting you to work on some objectives, we're hoping that we can change that and make sure our numbers are a lot better. So let's move on to looking at SMART objectives. And what are they? SMART objectives, for people that may have heard of them before, it stands for specific as the S, measurable as the M, achievable is the A, relevant is the T, and time bound is the T. So that's SMART. Many people will have heard of that. So I'm just going to quickly run through each of those headings to explain them a bit more, so that when we come to do the activity, we'll be able to work on that a lot more effectively. So specific, what does it mean to be specific? It means that it's clearly defined. The objective is precise, it's explicit, there's no question. So people have there's no misunderstanding around what it is that this goal is setting out to achieve. And to help you think about that in a bit more detail, it's really useful to think of these W's, you know, the what, why, how, why words that you might use. So who will you involve in helping you to achieve these objectives? Is it something that you can do on your own? Will you need a team? Will you need your team? Will you need to pull in people from around the business to help you achieve that goal? So who is involved in it? When do you want to complete the objective by? This can help you in the later section when you're looking at time bound, but it can also, you know, if it's a larger project, you might need to break it down into steps, and you might need to have milestones that ensure you can track how you're progressing through the objective. What are you trying to achieve? So what obstacles might you come up against? This is really helpful in thinking about, you know, risk-proofing your outcome. So, for instance, some change projects, some objectives involve change projects, and some people can be a little averse to change. So what you might need to think about is, how can I get people on board to really help me deliver this objective? So just thinking, what is it that I'm trying to achieve, and what obstacles might come up, and how can I overcome them? Where would the objective take place? Is it something that you could carry out virtually? Is it something that needs to take place in a settings? Do you need to have a face-to-face meeting to make it really meaningful? To where? Have a think about where it needs to happen. And then why are you looking at achieving this objective? What's the purpose behind it? What goal does it help? Does it link to the organization's objectives? These are all things to think about in making your goal really specific. The next one is measurable, so quantifiable. Is it easy to track the progress? Some objectives you can clearly attribute a number to. So, for instance, sales teams' targets usually are numerical based. Some of the finance teams' objective can be numerically based, whereas other teams, it's a little bit more difficult to attribute number goals to things, but you can make them quantifiable. So identify how you will track your progress. How will you know when you've achieved that objective? So here's another example of where you might put in milestones and how you might be able to track your progress. I mean, we all know what we were like at college or at school. We might have left our assignments to the last minute. I know I was certainly guilty of that on occasion. But to help us avoid doing that, can we put a plan in place, a really good objective goal in place to track our progress and get us started earlier, so it's not a mad rush at the end. That also gives us more time to work on the objective and make it a lot more better. So the next 3 letters, achievable. Is this goal achievable? Is it possible? Is it something that I can possibly do? Now, I've always wanted to be a rock star. Now, do I have what it takes to be a rock star? Right this minute, no. I can't play an instrument. I certainly can't sing to save my life. So how am I going to achieve that? It's slightly unrealistic. But to give me the best chance, I might sign up for singing lessons. I might sign up for guitar lessons or piano lessons. I might even join a rock band and just stand on the side. How am I going to get to that job? I'm not going to do it, don't worry. I'm not going to subject anybody to my singing whatsoever. So, but it's still something in the back of my mind. We all need to dream, don't we? So that's achievable. Have we got what it takes to achieve this goal? Do I have the skills? Do I need to study a course? Do I need to get a qualification? Does someone else have the skills? Can I use and learn from them? These are these things to think about in the achievable section. Is it relevant? So this is the next one. Is it appropriate? Is it the right time for this objective? We all have, business goals, the things that we want to achieve. But does this help the organisation right now? This really helps in terms of prioritising when and how you might achieve a goal. Is this the right time to achieve it in terms of wider business goals? Are there other things we need to do before we can get this one done? And then lastly, time bound. Does it have a deadline? Does it have a target date? If not, set one. If it's not linked to one of the organisation's goals, set one just so that there's an end point in time and when you're going to achieve it. As we've said before, if it's a longer project, set yourself milestones that you can track your progress towards achieving the end goal. Because as we know, back with the assignment example, if you leave it to the last minute, it can sometimes lessen the quality of the assignment. And so equally, leaving your objective to the last minute could lessen the quality of the outcome that you're looking for. So that's a quick whistle-stop view of objectives. Moving on, we now get into our activity session. So this is where I want you to grab hold of your objective that you have in mind that you want to work on, and spend about 5 minutes, longer if you want. There's no hurry, but 5 minutes probably does it. But you might want to come back and have a look at things as you think about it. Pause the session here, and if you need to, you can rewind back through the previous two slides through SMART objectives description slides, and use those, pause them there and use those descriptors to help you develop your objective. Now, unfortunately, that does mean you might have to listen to me again, but if you pause it, you won't have to do that. So there's an example here I just wanted to share, just so you got a flavour of what sort of things we're looking for. So one of the examples is, I want to be a teacher. So that's quite a generic objective. We could all want to be teachers. But an example of making it smart is making it a bit more specific, is that to obtain a role as a secondary school teacher. So we're being specific here. We're not saying we want to be a junior school teacher. We were not saying we want to be a university lecturer. It's a secondary school teacher. We also know we want to be a maths teacher. So for that, we probably need to have an interest in solving mathematical problems, good with numbers, etc. We're putting in a time-bound element here by saying it needs to be within 3 months of graduating from your Bachelor of Science in Education. And that's the qualification you'd need to become a maths teacher. So you can see there that we've flipped that on its head by making it a bit more definitive from just, I want to be a teacher. So as I say, pause the webinar here and spend as long as you need converting your objective that you have, whether it's personal or a business one, into a SMART objective. So you've come to the end. Thank you very much for attending and taking part in this webinar. In the circulated email or on the intranet, you'll find a link to a really quick quiz that we'd love you to take part in, just to check your understanding of this session, as well as to gather your feedback on ways that we can improve this webinar, and also ways that we can develop further webinars that you might find of use. So thank you very much once again, and please send us your feedback.